All right. Let's get into some position grades, guys. So the offense last week, we spent a lot of time on position grades, and I don't think we're going to have to spend nearly as much time on this group here. Uh, let's start with the D line here, and let's start with Anthony. Anthony, what grade did you give our defensive line?
I'll be honest, I had to just quickly throw in the grades because I wrote down all of my thoughts and didn't even put a grade. So,
That's fantastic. Who
so
needs planning?
when I was judging the line, I was judging Sealer, Campbell, Deshaun Hand, and Benito Jones. Those are the four guys I really considered to be part of my grade. And I got to say, 3 out of 4 were really good. I thought, Sealer and Campbell carried the defense by far. Um, and then Deshaun Hand, early on the season, especially, I think he started to fade towards the end. But he played particularly well, I thought. And Benito Jones was pretty invisible. I didn't really notice him out there too much. So I gave them a solid B, I would say. I have a hard time giving anybody on an 8 and 9 team an A. So spoiler alert. But I did give this unit a solid B because I think Sealer and Campbell may have been one of the best duos in the league.
Yeah, just to talk about the D line a little bit here. We also had Neil Farrell Jr., Brandon Peely, and Matt Dickerson. And to me, they just didn't have enough snaps. I agree with you, Anthony, to really justify it. So those were the main four to judge. Keith, what grade did you give the D line?
I'm lockstep with Anthony on this one here. I gave him a B. Deshaun Hand being the third guy, the third defensive lineman, and Zach Sealer had a great season for us. I still don't know how he broke his orbital bone mid-season. But when he was out, we missed him. We missed him big time. So I'd Zach Sealer was great. I'd like to get him a apologies to Calais Campbell, but a younger, more spry running mate who's going to be on the field for more snaps with him. But Calais Campbell played his part this year. He did a really nice job. I thought he faded a little bit towards the end of the season, as 38-year-olds tend to do. I'm not knocking him. I just turned 38 yesterday. So I'm not knocking 38-year-olds, but 38-year-olds, we get tired, we get tired towards the end of the day, towards the end of things. And so I think Calais Campbell his play kind of trailed off toward the end of the season. And I thought Deshaun Hand played a nice role. Played a nice rotational role for the Dolphins. So,
Happy birthday, by the way. Did
oh
not
yeah,
know yesterday was your
thank you.
birthday.
Yeah. The big 3-8. Now Calais Campbell and I,
Yeah.
now maybe the Dolphins look for me to play defensive tackle for
They
them
could.
next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hey,
listen, keep.
we're gonna have Josh as special teams coordinator,
Yeah,
and we're gonna have Keith here in the D line rotation.
Yeah.
Like, come on, undefeated season.
we are we are making plans for next season,
keep
man.
your resume updated, buddy. They're coming. They're coming
Yeah,
calling.
They're
yeah.
coming.
But now,
No,
like, I gave him a B. I gave him a B right along with Anthony. I thought they had a solid year, but kind of, they were solid if unspectacular.
yeah, I was a little higher on him. I gave him an A grade, and it is very much helped by Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell, who I individually gave A+ grades because they were. I seriously, for the expectations that were on this D line, for just this hodgepodge, let's just throw people in there. We'll see what happens. For this to be as good of a group as it is just a miracle. Sealer had 11 sacks, and he had a 78.9 defensive grade over on PFF, which was 11th among the interior D line. Calais Campbell had 5 sacks. He had an 82.3 defensive grade on PFF, which was sixth among the interior D line. And in terms of the backups, Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, I thought they both did fine as backups. I don't think they were particularly insanely great, but they also weren't insanely bad. Josh, who is in our chat here today, you could chat with Josh and get his thoughts more in detail, but he also shared his grades. He gave a B+ to the interior defensive line. But we are moving on, guys, to the edge room, the edge rushers. Anthony, let's start with you again. What grade did you give the edge rushers?
Well, I'm sticking with B's, but not by itself. I gave them a B minus on this one. I think that, Chop Robinson was great as a rookie. Emmanuel Ava quietly had 5 sacks. I didn't even realize he had that many. It's crazy. And then the rest of the unit was, well, I shouldn't say the rest of the unit. Quentin Bell, I really liked. I wanted to get to him because we talked about Quentin Bell in the preseason shows. And Taylor, I know you weren't here for those, but spoiler alert, we talked about Quentin Bell in the preseason shows as a guy we potentially like to play more snaps than we expected to this year. It took a really long time. He didn't really get involved in the defense till towards the end of the year. But when he did, you kind of felt his presence. I thought he didn't really do much with the sacks, but you felt his presence from setting the edge against the run. I thought he made quite a few impact plays, and overall, from those three, I gave them a B minus because of that. What I would like to see more of is growth from Mo Kamara. We didn't get to see Mo Kamara at all. I think he was out there at one point, but like we were signing guys to play over him. Like we signed Tyus Bowser, and he immediately started the next game. And Mo Kamara was relegated to practice squad or bench or wherever the heck he lived this season. So I was pretty pumped as a whole for Chop and for Quentin Bell, two young guys added to the mix that could potentially grow within the system. Agba, I don't know that he'll be back, but it was good to see some production out of him. And then I just want to see more from Mo. Give me more Mo.
Yeah, Mo Kamara, I have here that he didn't have enough snaps, so I don't think it was anything noteworthy. Like that was disappointing to get out of the way. He just did not see the field, and especially coming out of the draft, like that was one of the things that people were talking about. Like, hey, Chop's the project, but Mo is ready to be put out there, and somehow it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Keith, what grade did you give the edge rushers?
Well, look, if you'd have come to me before the season and you said to me, Bradley Chubb isn't going to play it down for the Dolphins this year. Jalen Phillips is only going to play 4 games before tearing his ACL. Mo Kamara isn't going to get much play. Shaq Barrett is going to retire inexplicably before the season. And basically, you're going to be stuck with guys like Quentin Bell and Emmanuel Ogbah and Chop Robinson as your edge rushers. I would have told you that the Dolphins defense is going to be horrible. They're never going to get any sacks. They're never going to get any pressures. And they're going to get gashed for a ton of yards. So with that being said, I gave the Dolphins edge rushers a B+. Largely off the back of Chop Robinson, who was just, at times, he was a man amongst boys. And again, this was a draft pick that I was not high on when it was made. I was not a happy camper when they drafted Chop Robinson. So again, if you'd have told me that Chop Robinson was going to be the Dolphins' top edge rusher, I would have been incredulous. I would have been pissed. I would have been beside myself, and I would have been wrong. They actually fared pretty well in spite of all the obstacles that were put in front of them this season. I think that needs to be taken into account here. So B+.
Yeah. Just real quick, Josh said in the chat here that Liam Eichenberg hurt Zach Sealer. So that is how he broke his orbital bone. So
Yet another reason to hate Liam Eichenberg. He got my jock strap last week, and
he'll get another one.
Yeah, he gets
An
another
honorary one just for that. Yeah, a lot of what you said, Keith, a lot of what you said, Anthony, I echo the same sentiment. Chop was a revelation this season. And I wasn't I didn't hate the pick. I just didn't quite understand it considering the holes on the team. But then you look at how the season unfolded. Thank God we had Chop Robinson because this defense and this edge rush room would have been. I don't even want to imagine what it would have been.
Awful.
I ended up giving this room a B minus. Chop Robinson specifically getting an A minus for he had 7 sacks, which isn't particularly like light the world on fire, but considering his pressure rate, considering what he did to get to the quarterback and make a impact on the quarterback, and also considering this is a bad thing, but I kind of consider it promising. He had a huge missed tackle rate at the position. So he has a lot to improve on, but that is easily fixable. next season.
We talked
And
about
can
that
you
a lot.
imagine?
We talked
Yeah.
about early in the season, like all you need to do is stick an arm out, Chop. It's not that hard.
Yeah, I
He's
think it was a
running right by guys.
33% missed tackle rate. Like that is insane. But that
Mm.
tells you, like, if he's doing that good now, imagine how he's going to do with a few years to actually develop. So yeah, I gave it a B minus. I thought Ogba played pretty well overall, especially considering he was asked to come in late. Or
Yeah.
not late, but he was asked to come in and start when we were
Oh,
supposed to have Phillips.
pretty late if
So,
I remember, Taylor. I think they asked him to come in after Shaq Barrett retired.
yeah. So what was late into the preseason process, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the backups, I think, did fine as well. Josh ended up giving this a C plus grade. Now, moving on to linebackers, Anthony, go ahead, man.
I just want to say one more point about the edge rushers. It's a shame that we didn't get to see Jalen Phillips, Chubb, and Chop on the field at the same time. It's unlikely that we will. I know that's a future episode where we'll talk about roster construction, but was really looking forward to that potential.
Before we move on, Taylor, let's go to the chat real quick and see what Irving has to say. On defense, Weaver did good despite some of the injuries. Edge, and yeah, we referenced that just now. Poor play at safety. We are certainly getting to that. Dolphins finished in the top 10 in the league in most major defensive categories, and that's what you were saying earlier, Taylor. It's great. It in spite of the talent level, in spite of what they were given, they did some nice things. 9th in passing yards per game. Yep. They were also top 10 defending teams on third down. They didn't create enough sacks, and I think that's with the edge injuries. Josh agrees.
A lot of Chop love in the chat.
Yeah,
I love the Chop love.
As there should be.
It's good to have a first round
as there
pick.
should be.
I think that's really the theme of the defense. I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of what we've said. I think that's what Josh has said in the chat. I think that's what Irving's saying. A lot of people in chat as well, just going like, hey, you know what? There's a lot to love about this defense, from Chop to Weaver to the D line with Sealer. Because Sealer, while he's not 24 years old, still hasn't even hit 30 yet, and he's on an amazing deal.
Yeah.
Considering what it could be. So there's a lot to look forward to with this defense. Unfortunately, we kind of hinted at it. Once we get to that secondary, our conversation will shift a little bit, but we're not there yet. We're still at linebacker.
Yes.
Anything else before we get into the linebackers?
Now let's go. Let's get into it, Taylor.
All right, Anthony, come on, man.
Let's do it. All right, so the linebacker position was completely overhauled this year, which is something that we as Dolphins fans have wanted for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
The one guy we brought back was David Long Jr. He ended up getting cut just a few weeks into the season because, well, let's not sugarcoat it. He was awful. He just wasn't a very good fit in the system. He couldn't plug the hole where he needed to, and that was his job. So there was reports that there was some disgruntled talk in the locker room, and then a couple days later, David Long Jr. was let go. So I think you could probably put one and one together. And see that makes two. Anthony Walker Jr., Jordan Brooks, they were our starters in the middle for most of the season. I got to say, they did a really, really good job. Jordan Brooks especially, 143 tackles. Come at me, boy. I know Keith is going to talk more about him later, so I'm not going to stat vomit on Jordan Brooks just yet. I got to say, though, guys, because I've loved this guy forever. I've played with him in Madden for a few seasons now. When Greer went out and snatched him up immediately when he was cut from Seattle, Tyrell Dodson, what a great addition. I just loved everything about it. I'm at a loss of words as to what to even say about him. He comes in, I think his first game he made an interception, and he only played
he finds interceptions. It makes no sense.
He only played a few snaps. He wasn't heavily involved in that first game. I thought the linebacker crew, that Anthony Walker and Jordan Brooks and Tyrell Dodson especially, played amazingly well. And then we had Duke Riley, who mostly played special teams. David Long didn't end up working out, and we cut him. And then we have this boy Channing Tindall on the roster still. I don't know where he is. He was the first pick of our draft in 2 years ago. I think we had a third round pick. We didn't have a first or a second because of the Tyreek deal. And Channing still hasn't made any sort of impact on his team. He hasn't even found the field, let alone make an impact. So I based my grade mostly on Walker, Brooks, and Dodson. I gave them a B. I really wanted to give them a B+, but I do think they left some plays out on the field this year. There was times where They looked a little lost, and once they got lost, it was like they had a hard time finding their way home. So I would want to see them clean that up. Maybe it's because it's their first time in a system and they're just getting used to things. I don't know. Maybe the safeties weren't doing their job, which we'll talk about more of. But yeah, so linebacker group, what an overhaul. I would say this is an overwhelming success in terms of completely turning over a position group and having it work that well. I thought was great. I gave them a B.
Yeah, what's funny is you mentioned Channing Tindall, and I'm looking at my roster. I forgot Channing Tindall. I think that tells you all you need to know about his season and how it went.
He played mostly special teams, Taylor. You know,
Yeah,
that's kind of what he's going to be at this point.
I don't even know what
Yeah.
number he is.
that's even who makes the roster. I think he was on the bubble.
He was.
This
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But Keith, what grade did you give the linebacking core?
I gave them a B. I'm kind of with Anthony on this one. I can't give them an A because I don't think they were an A to me is, this was a standout group. This was a group that, went above and beyond and did great things. And they did some very nice things. They missed a lot of tackles. They missed some games. I'm looking at Anthony Walker on this one. David Long was bad in the beginning of the season. Dotson came in and did some nice things. But I still don't think he was as good as Anthony Walker. I think Anthony Walker was a much better player. Jordan Brooks is the guy that gets his team up to a B though, because Jordan Brooks really solidified that linebacker position. He kind of took over where David Long and before him Jerome Baker, guys like that kind of failed. Jerome Baker was the epitome of mediocrity throughout his time in Miami. And Jordan Brooks was so much better than that. He was kind of all over the field at times. As Anthony said, 143 tackles, 86 solo tackles, 3 sacks. He was a revelation for this defense. And in my opinion, well, we'll get into it with game balls and jock straps. But spoiler alert, I think he's the Dolphins' defensive MVP. So I give the linebackers as a whole B.
Yeah, I gave the linebacker room a B as well. Jordan Brooks had over 1,000 snaps. I think he was one of 2 Dolphins defenders to have over 1,000 snaps, alongside Jalen Ramsey, who we will talk about. He kind of carries his own room, but Jordan Brooks was absolutely sensational this season. Anthony, you talk about Tyrell Dodson. Like, he was an interception machine somehow, some way. It still makes no sense to me, but he made a difference when he was on the field. He was signed in early November, along with the release of David Long, who was cut in early November. Who, yeah, man, that was a weird thing because last year he was so good for this team, and somehow to see him fall to he just can't be on the field. He's a liability. I don't understand what really happened there. Anthony Walker, I also thought played decently well as a backup linebacker, and Duke Riley didn't have enough snaps for me to really give him a grade on defense, which I think is a great thing. Anthony Weaver is again build a statue right now.
By the way, David Long he landed with 2 other teams and got cut by 2 other teams as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if
including the Lions, right?
He ended up with the Lions, then they cut him, and then ends up with the Titans, and I believe they ended up releasing him at the end of the year. So, what a fall from grace there.
Yeah,
out, man. He was
it's
so
actually
good.
weird how fast he fell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Josh ended up giving the linebacker room a B plus. I did that twice. Let's go on to the cornerback room. Anthony, this is a tough one.
Yeah, this is where it starts to kind of go a little downhill for me. I think you could split the defense in half and tell me one half was good and one half was bad. And this is where the bad part starts for me, at least. I gave the cornerback room a C minus. I thought that the addition of Kendall Fuller was really nice when he played, but again, faced injuries this year. I don't remember how many games he actually played. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Probably not. But, we've talked about availability all the time. We're kind of sick and tired of the team having all of these injuries. I don't know if that has something to do with our medical staff or whatever it is, but I would like to see the guys we pick up actually play. That would be nice. Okay. Jalen Ramsey, if you've watched this show for any amount of time, you know that I am not the biggest Jalen Ramsey fan. Sorry. I don't think he's worth the money and certainly played that way again this year, but he was our best cornerback. I don't know what that says, really. He started the season off by getting absolutely roasted by Brian Thomas Jr. Welcome to the NFL. And a little later on in the season, I can't remember who it was, but it was another rookie wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., just remembered, also burnt him. So Ramsey, the best corner we have and supposed to be this all-star, we paid him like an all-star, can't cover rookie wide receivers. That's what I came to understand out of this season. That's obviously simplifying it for simplicity's sake. But then when you look at the rest of the defensive backs, guys, it really so even if I wanted to give those guys a C+, because Fuller and Ramsey did play fairly well, the rest of the unit really left a lot to be desired. Kader Kohu did make a step up from last year, but still not matching his rookie season that we all fell in love with him. Continues to be just a middling kind of player, even back in his rightful position as the nickel corner. You still just saw way too lackadaisical of coverage from him at times, inability to tackle, which was a problem throughout the entire unit, and really expected to see more out of Kader there. But undrafted free agents, am I right?
Yeah.
Speaking of, Storm Duck was an undrafted free agent. As Josh mentioned in the chat, he does have the best name in football, and I'm so pumped he made the team. We were all pumped he made the team. But man, to say he had an up and down season would be an understatement. At times, he looked like a scrappy diamond in the rough that Chris Greer pulled out of his butt out of the undrafted free agency. And then at other times, he looked like an undrafted free agent. Just got owned on the field. Penalties galore because he's just holding on for dear life. So I would love to see more development out of Storm Duck. I really would. But man, if we are sitting here next year with him as like our corner 2, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I rounded Sorry,
I was going to say, you must have been terrified at the end of this season. That's all I'm saying.
It was tough. I don't know what we're going to do at corner, but it needs some work. To round off the guys I counted towards this, Siren Neal was terrible. He mostly played special teams, thankfully. Ethan Bonner was somebody we expected to see something out of this year, and we just didn't. And then I don't even know a good enough word to describe Cam Smith. Houdini, because you can never find him. I have no idea. Cam Smith, again, another guy who just hasn't done anything since being drafted by Miami fairly early in the draft. So I went, not to bury the lead, with a C- for this unit. A C- for the cornerback unit, because I think there was so much to be desired from this unit.
Keith, what grade do you give to corners? I'm going a little rosier than Anthony, but not by much. I want the C+ for the cornerbacks. So like I understand the criticism with Jalen Ramsey. You know, he's being overpaid. He's not the cornerback that he once was, so he's making too much money. He's making more money than his play suggests he should. But he was still the best cornerback on the team, and he's still, for decent stretches of the season, played like a top 5 corner, in my opinion. Now there were times where he got roasted against Marvin Harrison Jr., absolutely, against Brian Thomas in week 1 against the Jaguars. There were times he got picked on, but there were other times where he would erase the other team's top wide receiver. Just completely wipe that dude off the map, and you wouldn't hear about him all game. And games like that, you don't hear his name called all that often. There's a reason for that, because the quarterback isn't looking in his direction. He came on corner blitzes, and he made some nice plays on the corner blitz at times. So again, I think Jalen Ramsey, his best days in football are likely behind him, but I do still think he had a decent season for the Dolphins. Kendall Fuller, he played 11 games for the Dolphins this season. He didn't finish 2 of those 11 games. So let's say he played 9 games for the Dolphins. He was solid for those 9 games. He was solid. He was exactly as advertised. He was exactly what we thought we were getting when we signed him. So credit to him. Concussions, injuries, you can't really account for those kinds of things. But when he was in there, he was a good number 2 cornerback for us, and that's all we can really ask for. Cater Co, who I agree with you, Anthony, he didn't quite live up to his play as a rookie, but he wasn't nearly as bad as last year. He's kind of gotten into this mean area where I think you're just going to get decent play out of him. And I think that's what you can expect from him moving forward, which isn't a knock on him. He's an undrafted free agent, as we all know. And, you know, sometimes the best you could hope for out of an undrafted free agent is getting average, middling type of play from him.
I wouldn't mind having him and Duck as like the 4th and 5th corners, and maybe
Yeah.
upgrading at the slot at the nickel corner next year.
Oh, I agree. I think that's and you know, that brings me to Storm Duck, who, you know, at times looked overmatched. And again, he's a rookie undrafted free agent. At times he's going to be overmatched. He played at Louisville. Louisville is known for basketball, not football. So, you know, and then, you know, Cam Smith, I'll get into Cam Smith a little bit later on, but Cam Smith was bad and he was injured. And when he wasn't injured, he was bad. And that's a wasted draft pick by Chris Greer. We've gotten into draft picks by Chris Greer. That's a pick that I'm sure Chris Greer would like to have back. So all in all, I gave him a C+ because I don't think that they were nearly as bad as they've been made out to be. And I think a lot of that rests on Jalen Ramsey because of how much he's getting paid.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of this is on, not like a lot of the blame, but I think a lot of this room is on Jalen Ramsey because I think he carries a lot of it. I'm a little harsher than both of you guys on Kendall Fuller. I know he was out for a few games with various injuries, and that always sucks, but I expected him to have a little more of a presence. There was a lot of times where he was just getting, I don't want to say bullied out there, but it was just a thing where, oh man, who let up the catch? Oh, it's Kendall Fuller. Oh, who let the catch? It's Storm Duck, which we'll get to Storm Duck here in a bit. But Kendall Fuller, I was kind of a little disappointed with. Hopefully, his second year in Miami, he can kind of get past the injuries, come back strong, and let's see what he could really do. Jalen Ramsey, I know I said like he carried the room. I just want to add on here. Like I said earlier, he had over 1,000 snaps, and I think he added for a team that we talked about for the last few weeks, and it's a theme that's going to probably echo throughout this entire offseason. Get physical players, get physicality on this team. Jalen Ramsey was physical. Like he made plays. Talk about the Jacksonville game. There was a huge reversal. Like I think it was like a reverse play. It was like on a 3rd down. And you know what? The whole defense did not give up on it. Jalen Ramsey in particular ended up making a massive stop so we can come back and win that game. And that's something he did throughout the season. So I'll give him credit. Even though I'm with you, Anthony, I have a lot of issues with Jalen Ramsey as a player at this point in his career and how much we paid him in particular. But he still is a pretty good starting corner in the league. Kader Kohu, I'm kind of over the Kohu experiment at this point, guys. His thing is setting the tone, making the tackles, and he's not really doing that anymore. So, I mean, what's the point of him being on the team? But I guess we could bring him back on a cheap deal. It could end up working out. Storm Duck, I thought he played fine for an undrafted rookie in his rookie year. Saron Neal played horrible. Not much I would like to say there. Cam Smith, Nick Needham, and Ethan Bonner did not have enough snaps for me to grade on. So yeah, I gave this room a C minus. Josh ended up giving this room a C plus. Now, let's get to the room that I'm pretty sure Josh wanted to be on here to talk about. Safety room. Oh, this is gonna be the harshest part of the entire episode.
Yeah.
Who wants? Anthony, do you want to go first?
Sure, it's pretty short and sweet for me. There's not really too much to say.
Yeah.
I gave this room an F. If I could give them lower, I would. Jordan Poyer has no Jordan Poyer has no right being on a football field anymore. It was consistently being picked on. He was consistently the reason that we gave up long 3rd down conversions. Consistently the reason we gave up touchdowns. Just I know that We kept him on the field because he was the coach of the defense, but you can't convince me that Jordan Brooks couldn't have taken that job. Or maybe Javon Holland, the guy who's fighting for a big payday, who completely crapped the bed this year. Javon Holland is a guy we all love. We drafted him right after we got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had an amazing rookie season, and we all fell in love all over again with our safety. This year, he's playing with an opportunity to get paid big bucks next year, and Miami would have given it to him if he had any kind of good season, but he did not. It was so disappointing. This is a guy whose jersey I nearly purchased after his rookie season. I don't go out buying safety jerseys. Why the heck would you? They're safeties. But what a disappointment this year. Consistently out of position. I saw this guy get faked out by a tight end on more than one occasion. What the heck is that? These are the slowest guys on the offense, and they're sitting there juking him out of his pants. And Elijah Campbell, he was in and out, but didn't play enough for me to really add too much to it. I think at the beginning of the year, we were saying that he was the best safety we had because the other two were playing so poorly. To be honest, the whole safety room is gone after this year. None of them are under contract, and I cannot wait to see, hopefully, 4 new guys in that room, just like they did with the linebackers this year.
Keith, what grade do you give to safeties?
I gave him an F as well. There's
Wow.
no excuse for how they played this year. Jordan Poyer, not only was he missing tackles and taking wrong angles on tackles, he was getting stupid penalties. He cost us that Bills game with that stupid penalty, which he didn't have to commit at the end of that game. He got the Bills in the field goal range, got them a new lease on life. Man, he was bad. We joked about it all year, but it was almost like he was a sleeper cell for the Bills. He came in just to sabotage the Dolphins. Like, that's what it felt like at times with Jordan Poyer.
That was the conspiracy theory.
So Jordan Poyer, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, because I'm done with you. And Javon Holland. Anthony, you said you almost purchased his jersey. I did purchase his jersey. I did purchase Javon Holland's jersey. Actually, no, I didn't. That's not true. My wife got that for me. My wife got me a Javon Holland jersey for Christmas 2 years ago. So, but I do have a Javon Holland jersey. I've worn it loud and proud. Not this season, though, because Javon Holland was bad. He was horrible. He played almost as bad as his running mate in Jordan Poyer. And this is a 24-year-old safety who's supposed to be entering the prime of his career in a contract year. He should have played out of his mind this season. He should have played out of his mind. And if his first 2 seasons was any indication, he would have. He looked like Rashad Jones reincarnated to me.
What a name.
Yeah. Loved Rashad Jones back in the day.
I haven't thought about that guy in a long time.
I think about him a lot because he was like one of my favorite players back in the day because he was all over the field, and that's what Javon Holland looked like to me. He looked like a Rashad Jones clone where he's all over the field, making plays, making tackles, getting interceptions. Javon Holland has been the invisible man all season, and it kind of feels like after he sprained both MCLs in his knees last season on the same play, no less. He hasn't been the same player since then. And I'm not saying he wasn't healthy this season. I don't know what was wrong with Javon Holland this season. But he's another one where you're 24 years old, you're supposed to be in your prime, you're in a contract year, and you play like that. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. See you. The whole room gets in F. Throw him in the trash.
Josh, Brandon Jones was my man crush, and we got rid of him. Josh says he'd take Brandon Jones over. I mean, I would have loved to have Brandon Jones back, but
absolutely. Absolutely.
I am flabbergasted by both of you guys giving this safety room an F. Granted, I'm giving this a D, but at the same time, I was surprised to hear you guys talk like I talked about the guards last week. So that was really awesome. And also, Keith, I seriously gotta appreciate the Rashad Jones shout out. Like,
Rashad Jones was the man.
You start talking about Carlos Dansby, and all that group.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. But no, we're not gonna get into that tangent. Talking about Javon Holland here. Yeah, man, it's a lot of what you guys said. I don't know what it is. That's what bothers me so much about it. Like, is it an injury thing? Is it a schematic thing? Because I can't imagine it's schematic. You think he would
He's
fit so
athletic.
well.
He's too athletic for it to be schematic.
That's what I'm saying. Like, especially in the Anthony Weaver, Baltimore Ravens kind of defense, you think he'd be perfect for that. So it's got to be something injury related, or I don't know, man. Especially what you were saying, Anthony, about it being a contract year. This was his time to prove I should be one of the highest paid safeties in the league. And instead, you're sitting there going like, I'm not sure he gets a big contract, period, from a team. Unless the team just goes like, "Oh, I didn't see what happened last season. I just know he's a 24-year-old safety with a bunch of promise." Jordan Poyer, there's nothing I could say about this guy. We got him 2 years too late, and he made many mistakes. He was available. I'll give him that. He was available to play. But that's pretty much the only thing I could say.
So were we. We could
Yeah.
have done just as well.
I'd have taken better angles.
I would have taken half the pay.
There's not a whole lot to really say about this room because it's really just those two. Marcus May got released in late November. I think he went on to play for the Chargers.
He did. He
So
made
I
an
think he got
interception in
on
his
to
first game for them.
yeah. So he got in the playoffs. And Elijah Campbell, Patrick McMorris didn't play enough snaps. The only person I want back on this roster next year in the safety room is McMorris
Mm-hmm.
because I want
Yeah,
to see
a
what he's
shame we
got.
didn't get a chance to see him. Yeah.
And
So
Campbell, to be fair, I think Campbell's good on special teams.
yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I was far more. I'm far more done with Duke Riley than I
Yeah.
am with Elijah Campbell.
I do
On this
want to
team.
mention Taylor that something Josh probably would have said. He did say it in the chat, and I think he is onto something there. That Holland potentially could have been played bad because he was trying to make up for the shortcomings of Poyer.
Yeah,
We'll never know. We don't know the scheme well enough or where he's supposed to be and when. But I can tell you that if that is the reason that he just lost himself a bunch of money to try to make up for another player, that's never good.
Yeah. It's like Bill Belichick's old adage: "Do your job. Do your
Yep.
job.
Right.
Don't do somebody else's job. Do your job."
Make
Javon
the
Holland,
tackle.
yeah, Javon Holland may have been trying to do Jordan Poyer's job in addition to his own, but by trying to do both jobs, he was doing both jobs half-assedly. So do your job and let Jordan Poyer leave him out to dry, man, because he was going to be bad anyway.
Well, Josh would kill me if I didn't mention this. His grade was a D minus.
Oh, you didn't
I'm
give him an
surprised he didn't
F?
go
That's
F.
so
I know.
shocking.
I
That's
can't
why I
believe
was
he didn't
so
give him an
shocked.
F.
That's why I was so shocked at you guys going F because I sat here looking at Josh's grade and going like, "Oh man, he didn't trash on this enough."
What
But
the hell, Josh?
we got one last room to talk about. That's the special teams room,
Mhm.
and I guess it's more like just the kickers, punter, how we did on special teams in general, kind of thing. I know this is a little more difficult than just the, going position by position. So Anthony, go off, man.
Yeah, I kind of clumped them all into the same. Obviously the special teams coordinator was a problem. He got cut after the season, and something we wanted years ago.
Yeah.
But listen, Jason Sanders was rock solid this year, and Bailey was much better than any of us expected him to be. There was no kick or punt return to speak of. We had no production out of those two units, and the coverage units were pretty good. I gave them a C overall. I thought overall that it's just an average unit. There's nothing special. There's nobody for me to scream from the rooftops for in this unit. So I figured, why not give them a C?
Yeah, not to go out of order here, but literally Anthony said everything I wanted to say. I gave it a C as well. Like Jason Sanders to me is the only highlight besides what Malik Washington having that fantastic kick return against the Jets and
That we didn't
Malik,
score on.
yeah, and Malik Washington, yeah, he had that fumble as well, so kind of balances out. But Washington overall was a pretty fine kick returner. Everything else but this special teams unit was average at best, and at worst, like we needed changes at this position. Heath, what grade did you give the special teams?
Yeah, I'll give him a C plus. I mean, Jason Sanders is back to his old reliable self, which is a relief because it sucks having your field goal kicker go up there and you're sweating bullets as to whether or not he can make a 35-yard field goal. So it's nice to have the old reliable Jason Sanders back. Jake Bailey, look, he wasn't good as a punter. He wasn't. He was just okay. We could probably do better. But if he's the reason why Jason Sanders has had this kind of resurgence in his reliability, then I'll keep Jake Bailey forever and just let him punt. I'll let him punt until his leg falls off because I value Jason Sanders being as reliable as he was this season more than I value a great punter, if that makes sense. So I'm good with that. I do think they should have fired Danny Crossman. I think that was well deserved, long overdue, because their coverage unit has been bad for years now. Our return units haven't been great for a long time now. And this whole thing with Blake Ferguson, this whole mystery thing with Blake Ferguson, I don't think we'll ever get clarity. I don't think we'll ever get clarity on what happened there. And I don't dock them points for that because there wasn't any botched snaps or anything like that. But it was just a weird season overall for the special teams. With Braxton Berrios going out and then Malik Washington taking over. I want to see the special teams win us a game. When was the last time you can say the special teams actively won us a football game?
I can't tell you when, but I can tell you who. That was Van Ginkel.
Who?
Somehow Van Ginkel won us a game on special teams. I can't tell you when it was, but
yeah, I remember that. It was a blocked punt, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that against the Bengals?
It might have been.
I remember us getting a really big special teams play against the Bengals that ended up winning the game for us.
We've gotten a safety against the Bengals in overtime that won the game for us one time.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Cam Wake. I remember that.
Cam Wake.
And Washington this year, I think you can give that. If we don't have that punt return, I'm not sure we end up.
That's true. That's true. But I want to see more stellar play out of the special teams and not just we're going through the units to get the ball back to the offense. We're going through units just to get the ball through the uprights and moving on. Yeah. Or, whatever. Danny Crossman should have been fired. Danny Crossman was fired. I'd like to see us move on to a guy like Darren Rizzi, who I think is a really good special teams coordinator, and see if we can squeeze more blood out of this stone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Josh ended up giving the special teams unit a B+, so he was higher on it than us here.
Get it, Josh. There you go.
Be sure to leave a comment on your grades for the defense, for the defensive groups and the special teams, and give us a like on this video.